All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Friedlander, and I'm your host for Motherhood Unlimited, the #1 summit for moms who want it all. Welcome and thank you for joining us. It is our mission to take the limits off motherhood and empower moms to have it all for their own unique and vibrant lives. Because we believe that when moms learn to create where, who, and how they want to be, their happiness and overall life satisfaction increases, and they become inspirational and inspired to support their children and each other. Today, we are talking about creating a life you love. Our expert is Bridget Tullo. Did I pronounce that right, Bridget?
Yes, Tullo. You got
Awesome.
it.
Tullo.
Yes.
Fabulous. And I invited her to share with you because of her work supporting other mompreneurs and her message that there's nothing wrong with wanting to have it all, but you must take care of yourself in the process. And I think you can never be reminded of that enough. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Bridget.
Thank you so much for having me, Valerie.
Awesome. So before we get started, let me tell the audience a little bit about you. Bridget founded the Radiant Mompreneur to uplift, teach, and inspire millions of women around the world. This mission began when, after spending 2 years as a stay-at-home mom, Bridget launched into the world of online entrepreneurship. She found that loving both roles was a very unique and challenging experience, and she wanted to reach out and support other mom entrepreneurs on this journey. So fabulous. I appreciate, as a fellow mompreneur, I appreciate.
Yes,
appreciate
absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your journey to taking the limits off of motherhood.
Absolutely. Well, I was a teacher for several years before I had my son, and I knew in my heart I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But I didn't quite know how that was going to happen. I just knew that was important to me. So, we saved money and went the traditional route. I was able to stay at home with my son for about a year. We said we'd reassess finances, right? Because we're balancing it all. And then another year went by, and I said, I'm loving being home with my son. He was about 2 years old, but I felt a financial pressure, that I was going to have to go back to work. And really at that point in my life, it's not what I wanted to do, was to go back to a traditional 8-to-5 job. And for me, I wanted to be present with my son during the day. So I just began exploring how could I make this work? Is this possible for me to be able to be a stay-at-home mom and to find some way to bring revenue into the home? And, I came across this book. It's a very famous book. And it's gotten a little flack, but I'll share it with you. And the book is The Secret. Okay, so I have been immersed in, books on personal growth and spirituality for most of my life. So I was in the library with my son one day, and I picked up this book. And it had been out for several years, but for whatever reason, I hadn't read it before. And so I read it, and I took it to heart. I really took it to heart. And the main message of it to me that I took away from The Secret was that you can really have, do, and be what you want in this life. And that if you believe you can have, do, and be these things, then they will become part of your life, part of your world. And so I literally got out, like a day or two after I started reading that book, I got out a piece of paper, and I let myself write down what it would be. Because I think a lot of times we don't let ourselves really want what we really want, because we think we can't have it. We think it's going to be too hard, or it's just not possible. And so we don't let ourselves kind of dream anymore a little bit. And so it's just this really big awakening to say, okay, if this is really true, if I could really have, do, and be what I want, what would that even look like? And I think so many times we go on autopilot, right? Or we follow the traditional path. I went to college, I became a teacher, I loved what I was doing. But it was a path laid out for me once I chose it. And taking the time to be reflective and to have a moment in your life where you're kind of on pause a little bit. It really was very inspiring to me, because I got excited by what I was writing down, things that I had never really allowed myself to think before. And so one of the things I wrote down was I wanted to be a coach. And this just kind of came from, just a little part of me that over a period of years had been there, but I'd never really, looked into it. So I wrote, I'd like to be a coach, like to help people in that way. And I wrote down that I wanted to be a speaker. And at the time, I was terrified to speak in front of groups. So I didn't know how this was going to happen, but there was something within me that it was calling to me in some way. And so I went to Toastmasters and I sweated it out in front of the groups and got a bit better at it. So being a speaker, and really it was about creating a lifestyle that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And that's what I share with mom entrepreneurs now, is that you can create a lifestyle you truly love without the limits, without working 80 hours a week, without tons of stress. We know that there's stress involved in everyday life, right? That's part of life, but it's a matter of creating a life that you love, finding the joy in it, and really setting it up the way you want it to be. What does your ideal day look like? Do you know? I mean, have you sat down and thought about it? Have you meditated on that? Have you written that down and painted a picture for yourself? Because I think the main reason we don't have the things that we truly want in life is because we don't really decide that this is the thing that we want. I think we have vague ideas of what we want. We think, I want to go on, it would be nice to go to Europe. But we don't say when or where. We don't get specific about it. It'd be nice to be able to do this, be able to do that. It'd be nice to have more money. But it's so vague. So I think it's a matter of figuring out exactly what you want, and then getting into the nitty gritty of, goal setting, mm-hmm. right? So yeah, that's kind of my story of how I went from full-time traditional work to stay-at-home mom to entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Fabulous. Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're saying, because I have also kind of, when I first heard about The Secret and all this stuff, and I was like, mm-hmm. yeah, you can't just think your way into something. Right. And it's like, right. But what you said really stood out for me is it was opening up the ability to think of possibilities instead of limitations of because I was just to go, well, I want this, but here's all the reasons I can't have that.
Right.
And I would just stop. And so to be able to open that up and then take the action, that's so key, because a lot of us, we get stuck in the action. Mm-hmm. And, it's like, oh, well, if I could just think it, that'd be great. But I actually I get stuck in the action. Yes. So tell us a little bit about, well, one, where do you get the energy to take the action? Yeah. While taking care of a little person?
I think most of the energy came from sheer enthusiasm and excitement, because if you can really tap into what you really want, and what your dream is, there's energy in that, just inherently. Mm-hmm. So I was just immediately excited at possibilities. If you believe that, you've written down these things that you would love to have happen in your world, and you believe maybe one of them could happen for you maybe in 6 months, or you think that you have like a 5-year plan to become a millionaire, whatever it is that you write down, right? If you really believe that can happen for you and you love that, that gives me energy. That can give you energy. And I remember my son was a terrible sleeper. Okay, so I was already exhausted. But I remember you can't really do much during a day by yourself with, a 1.5-year-old, a 2-year-old, especially when he wasn't napping very much. So for me, it was a matter of when he went to bed at night, that's when I would work. And so I did have a lot of late nights, and I did have sleep deprivation. I did have some challenging days because I was up till 2 or 3 in the morning researching how to create an online business, learning from scratch, really. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, and that was one of the things I had written down, was I want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know how to buy a domain name. So I was really just, very basic stuff. And everything I found online excited me. It was possibilities. I found mentors. Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. There's so many people out there who are teaching how to do this, and that excited me and it fueled me. And there were some rough days where I probably went to Starbucks twice, where I was trying to get through the day. But that excitement can really give you a lot of energy. And then when you start to see things come together, you start to see it working, that just gives you, a bit more energy to keep going. So I think motivation is something that I'm a big believer in motivation. I've always got an audio book in my car of Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins or something, but I think a lot of it has to be internal as well. And if you can tap into what really inspires you, you'll get some energy from that. And just knowing it's going to be challenging being a mom, and knowing that if you have support systems in place, family members or your husband or friends who can help out during the day, then that's just bonus, right, to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that idea that looking for what are the resources and knowing that it's not like it doesn't all have to come from with me. The passion has to come from within me. That's my part. My part is the passion and taking the action. But that doesn't mean I can't ask for support doing that, like finding a mentor or, reaching out to resources or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you said I saw on your website, and I love this quote from you. It says, "Some days it's heaven and some days it's hectic, but I love it all the time."
Yes.
I love that. And I love that because there's a difference. I think we think that being uncomfortable and being, working hard isn't something that we can necessarily love. Because, for me, I'd worked so hard at things I didn't love for so long that it become synonymous. Like work hard and not fun, and I don't like this, kind of all lumped together. So it was like breaking that concept of like that it can be fun. So tell us a little bit about how you mentioned the support, how you've gotten the support for what you're doing, especially, with your husband. And I know that when you start shifting patterns of behavior, that can cause struggle within the home because they're like, you've created a comfort zone for yourself in your home. So now you're disrupting that. Tell us a little bit about how you've made that relationship work.
Absolutely. So a couple of things. For one, we don't really have a lot of family support. We don't have family nearby, so that wasn't really an option for us for help with my son. And there were definitely some challenging days. I mentioned he was not a good sleeper at all. But he's still my son and delightful, and I loved every minute with him. But there were some, days where ponytail and no makeup, and you know how it is, you get through. But you're right. It has been a shift in my marriage because my husband was the breadwinner for the time I was a stay-at-home mom. We were missing my income. And I think what helped was a transition period. So I started to launch an online business before we got into a financial crunch. We knew that we had saved, for me to be a stay-at-home mom for a period, but not, super long term. So we knew that was coming up as a need. So what I was able to do in this situation was to create some revenue before we got into a crunch. So working in the evenings, working on some weekends, and building, I had an online, I actually still have it, online business where I sell products on Amazon. That was my first real money-making company, and I've got it to 6 figures in the first year. So I'm super proud of that.
Yeah.
So in the first year of that, it was more about how I was managing because my husband was still working during the day. And in the evenings when I worked, he was appreciative that I was looking for ways to bring revenue in. So that wasn't much of a conflict. I think that the trickiest part was just not having family support. And we weren't really interested, for us personally, in having daycare and babysitters. I had a couple of close friends that would watch my son on occasion, but they weren't available all the time. So it was really challenging for me in terms of sleep and self-care. But I will say after about a year and a half, maybe 2 years into being an entrepreneur, my husband was able to resign his job. so I could focus more on the business. So now we have a very unique situation where even during this interview, my husband is downstairs with my soon-to-be 5-year-old, so that I can work some during the day. So I'm not always in that up till 2 a.m. That's not sustainable long term, right?
Right.
I did it because I needed to do it. But I knew that was not a long-term solution for my well-being and for the life I really wanted to create. It's kind of that, you have to take the action. You've got the dream, you got to take the action. That's how I was able to take the action, was to push myself through that. But now it's easier, right? You might have to work 3 times as hard in the beginning to create what's going to be a little bit more of a life of ease. It's like laying foundation. And there's a book, I want to say it's The Richest Man in Babylon, but I might have this wrong. It's a book about about many things regarding money and creating wealth in your life. And they talk about, a traditional job. It's kind of like taking water and getting it in a bucket and bringing the bucket home. And you go get more water and you take the bucket each time. And that's kind of almost kind of the rat race that we get in, where we have to just do this daily activity to make ends meet. And I think of entrepreneurship, they describe it in the book as creating pipelines, right? So it takes longer to set up pipelines, right? You got to dig under the ground, you got to get the infrastructure, you got to get the materials, but then you've got this pipeline flowing. And so it's a matter of working really hard at the beginning and creating something that's going to sustain you in a different way, right? So I'm sorry if I had that wrong from that particular book, but I love that analogy. I think that's really part of how I live my life and how I create this vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes perfect sense of if you like carrying the water, that's cool, because some people do. Some people really like the particular liquid or whatever they're carrying, or whoever, there's a passion in that. But to be able to carry the water and then lay the foundation of the pipeline, or forego having water for a while you've got, lay the foundation, that does take an extra push.
Yes.
But once you do it, if that's where your passion is, it's worth it. So yeah. And then having that support to be able to do it. Yeah.
It's really what's important to you, right? Exactly. Yeah.
So we mentioned self-care several times and the lack thereof, but I know one of the things that you talk about a lot is that you can have it all, but you do need to take care of yourself. So how did you sustain yourself during that foundation building time?
A lot of different ways. When I decided I wanted to be a coach, I did actually enroll in a coaching program about 4 months after that at Duke University. And one of the things I got from that, which is excellent program, I'd highly recommend it, is mindfulness, right? That is the foundation of all of the coaching work. And I use it daily in my personal life and with clients. And so mindfulness to me is being present, right here, right now. And so that just means being in the now without judgments and not staying, the mind is so busy. It's always wanting to kind of rush forward to the future or reliving something from the past. And, there's value in that at times. It's a matter of making a conscious choice to kind of be here right now. And I think with small children, they're always in the moment. And pets, I think, are always in the moment. So it's good energy and good reminders to kind of stay present. And that relieves stress. And I think the other part of mindfulness is meditation, more formal practice. So I've been doing meditation for years and I loved it. And so I went and I took a class on transcendental meditation, actually. So that's an extra way that I am able to do self-care. And so transcendental meditation is just a particular technique for meditating. It's like 20 minutes twice a day. And there are days that I don't fit it in, but it's part of the structure of how I want to live my life. So it's pretty high priority for me. So most days I do get it in, and it restores my sanity. It restores, it's good for your health. It's just good to just sit and be with yourself. It's very restorative. I think we don't do that very often.
No.
No, we
Yeah, our social makeup is not, I mean, there's a lot more talk about it now, but it's definitely not something, it's new still.
yeah,
And making this space for it is
yes,
not something that many of us, myself included, have been particularly good at over the years of like finding I think, oh, I'm going to do it first thing in the morning. And I try and do that, and that ends up being news. So like, all right, I need to find out a way that works, like a time that works better, like maybe get up and move and then meditate instead of, like, oh, I'll meditate right now during the snooze button.
Yeah.
That doesn't work so well.
Yeah. And I think we've just been so culturally trained to value multitasking and being busy.
Yeah.
That I think it's almost it's a mindset shift, really, to think. I asked someone, they were in an office type environment, and I said, what would it feel like to you if your manager, your boss came in and they saw you just kind of just sitting in silence at the desk? And they said, oh, I would feel like I was in trouble. I'd feel like I wasn't doing. And I said, do you ever have a moment where you just kind of just sit back and just like focus on your breath during the day? And I found that when moms do this, there's a friend of mine who's a nurse, and she said when she had some mindfulness implemented in her life, she said after she would leave a patient and before she would get on the phone to call someone, she would just take like 10 seconds and just relax her shoulders and just kind of just feel her breath. And she said it made the biggest difference. So it can be 20 minutes twice a day. It can be 10 seconds before a phone call, and I love that it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to be in lotus position, and you don't have to have everything just right, in order to do it. But yeah, it's tremendously valuable for me. And I think it's a pretty significant form of self-care that we don't think of, I think I only learned meditation maybe in the last 5 years of my life. So there's a lot of time there I wasn't doing it. And so I can see the difference in how I feel when I do it.
Well, it's a substantial shift from being a human doing to a human being.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're supposed to, we're here to be a human being.
Yes.
So,
and I will say, you mentioned relationships earlier, and mindfulness is a huge plus for relationships. And the example I can think of is when I was a full-time stay-at-home mom and I wasn't working or building a business. That my son was my full. I think my part-time job was being photographer of my 1 or 2 year old. But when my husband would come home from being gone from like 7 to 7, right, 12-hour day, taking a moment to actually look at him. Because you know how it is, the kids running around and you're making dinner and maybe the TV's on in the background or different things, and you just kind of almost like in passing, you're like, hey, but it's kind of taking a few moments just to kind of look in each other's eyes and say, hey, how was your day? And be really sincere about that. And I think that there's a level of respect because everybody wants to be heard and acknowledged. And I think it's a sign of love to give someone your full attention. And so that's a bit of, I guess, self-care in terms of your marriage. And the same thing with colleagues and friends, just giving someone your full attention really is being mindful. I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And your children.
So that actually brings me to the next thing I would love for you to talk about, and that is about how you show up now as a mom. I mean, as an entrepreneur, there's that big push in the initial period, and also being a stay-at-home full-time mom. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. How has this shifted how you show up as a mom?
It's actually been quite wonderful because I think not every day, but most days, I feel that I'm the mom I really want to be. I'm human. I have days where I've cried in front of my computer, to be honest with you, or yelled when I didn't mean to yell. I think we're very hard on ourselves. And we have a lot of mommy guilt. And I think that's, we just need to be, I think, a little more kind with ourselves. But how I am as a mother now, how I show up, I am able to structure the day in a way that I think I can be the best that I can be at each part of my day. So, for example, first thing in the morning, there's something called Miracle Morning. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Mm-hmm.
Miracle Morning. I love it. That's something I have not been able to master consistently. I'll be honest with you, because it was disturbing my son in the morning. So again, mompreneur challenges are very different. So setting a day, whether it's Miracle Morning or not, setting the day the right way, starting out. So I know what my ideal day looks like, and I don't hit the target every day, but I hit it a lot of days. So I know my ideal day looks like I get up before everyone else, and I have my meditation, and I have a little book that I write in with my goals, and I drink my water, and I kind of set the intention for the day. When my son gets up, then I'm able to do make a smoothie with him or go for a walk on the trail if the weather's nice. And then we actually have about half hour of homeschooling time. I've got he loves it, and it's just preschool stuff, right? And so it's a lot of fun. And then my husband takes over. I go upstairs, I go to my office, and I work for about 3 or 4 hours. Then I get time with my son in the afternoon. And then a lot of times when he goes to bed around 8 o'clock at night, 8:30, then I'll work a little bit more if I need to. But that's basically how we've set up so I can be present in business and present with my son and have some time with my husband as well. So it works for the most part. But I like to say it's a daily delicate balance, right? In terms of, life happens, right? And we get sick and there's appointments and there's stuff that comes up. But generally, I feel like I'm living the life that I truly want to live. And that's just amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. As someone who was years ago very cynical about life, I really, and I don't think it's all about how you were born or how, I grew up believing life was very hard. And money was very hard to come by, and there were a lot of problems. And I think that because I've been so in love with personal growth and personal development most of my life, that I have just shifted bit by bit by bit. And now I feel like I'm a very positive person. Not that positive thinking, is the be all end all, but it's part of it, right? And so that's why I wanted to share this with our mom entrepreneurs, because I think that you can shift, you can transform, you can create. And I would just want to empower other moms to know that and believe that about themselves. And whatever that perfect day looks like for them, that can be the reality.
Yeah, awesome. So starting with that vision and creating the mindfulness and the space inside of yourself, and then and then laying those foundations, taking the steps to create those foundations. So with creating those foundations, with what you know now, where would you say someone who is just thinking about it and starting to think about it, once they create their vision, what next?
Well, and in terms of creating the vision, I would say most women that I've spoken to have not done this, have not really sat down with pen and paper and created a vision. I think we know what it is, but we don't get really specific about it. So I would say really, really make sure you've got that down, because that's where the action comes from. So it's so individual and it's so unique. And every mom I've ever coached has had a completely unique situation. So whatever the vision is that you create, for me, for example, for being a speaker, it was really obvious to me what I needed to do next was I needed to practice my speaking skills. So I went online and found how to do that, and found Toastmasters and went to the meetings. And the action part becomes so much easier when you're clear about what you really want. I think part of the reason that we feel like we don't know what to do sometimes is because we're not clear about our goal. And so vision, I think, is kind of, it's a little bit of broad strokes, right? And then we get specific with timelines and numbers and things. So if you want to make more money and be able to travel, then that's a broad kind of vision. And then you've got to say, I want to have $5,000 a month by this date. You've got to get specific. And from that, you know yourself, your interests, what's going to inspire you, where your passion is. And that's going to naturally lead to action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm going to forget the name of the book. Since we're talking about books, it's the one, about it's about the Andrew Carnegie's formula for creating wealth and looking at all these different entrepreneurs and stuff, and it's that setting that intention, setting that that idea, and then the how will follow from that. Yes. And but looking for this, for one of the places I always stopped was I would get confused. There's so many options. I'm confused. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just not gonna. And knowing that I can't, just taking an action, I can't fail. Mm-hmm. It's just moving forward and getting out of that mindset of like, I could choose the wrong thing.
Right.
Like remembering that there is no wrong.
The truth is we will choose the wrong thing sometimes. I have failed. Believe me, I have failed. And I think that we tend to be fearful of failure because that's like the natural response, but it's part of the success formula. I don't know anyone who is successful who's not failed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just the way it is. I don't know anyone. And I'm in communities with successful entrepreneurs. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people online and go to events. Everybody has failed. And I think we have to, in some way, just kind of be okay with that. And how much risk you're wanting to take is very unique. So some people, if they spend $500 on a course, that's a monumental risk. I spent $5,000 on a course to learn how to sell on Amazon. It was a big risk for us, but it paid off. Some of the other things I did were not as successful. And it's kind of, it's a matter of being committed. Mm-hmm. Right. And once you're committed to something, and people would ask me, how did you find how to sell on Amazon? How did you come across this? And I said, I wasn't looking for Amazon. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew it was a way to have an online business at home. Mm-hmm. And, I did some Kindle books, I did blogging, I was learning my way through, some of the Kindle books paid off, some didn't. Some of the blogging paid off, some didn't. And it's just kind of feeling your way through it. And I think, gosh, I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't done those things and learned about, how to create this and how to do that. It's like, it's an education, really, is the way I look at it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and it's Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
Yes.
Napoleon Hill. Yes.
Thinking not right now. But yeah, absolutely. This is exactly, which is, I was listening to, was something that popped up on my social media feed, but about the idea of her father actually was disappointed when she couldn't say that she failed at something that day. Because it was always congratulations, you tried. Yes. And that was the idea, was that it was growing and making the effort. So I love that. So
it is about growth, and growth is uncomfortable sometimes. And there's some saying about how your success is measured by your willingness to have uncomfortable conversations, or and there's some truth to that. It was not comfortable doing my first speeches, in front of strangers and became friends, but it's not comfortable, and I did my first online launch a couple of months ago, and I was sweating it. It was a lot of work, and I was unsure about some things, but I had a coach who was helping me through it. And you just have to kind of keep going in not only faith, but have a plan, right? So I think it's a nice mixture of faith and having a plan. And maybe it's Tony Robbins or something who says like a dream without a plan is a wish, something like that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I'm not gonna get the quote because apparently, but yeah, absolutely. That I mean, it's in so many other things. Like if you're a religious person, you know, faith without works is dead, you know, things like that. It's kind of sporadically throughout. So yeah. So we're actually just about at our time, but
okay.
just to recap, what are like 2-3 things that you really want the audience listening to take away from this interview?
Well, definitely a vision. So take the time, take 5 minutes, 20 minutes. I know we're busy and time is precious and we think we have to just start working. And I get into that trap sometimes too, the action. Let me get online. And before you open up your computer to work, get out a piece of paper, sit quietly with yourself and collect your thoughts and think about what would be an ideal life for you and your family. What does it look like? Write it down. If the limits were taken off and you could do anything, what would that be? If you could have anything, go anywhere, and start there, because that's usually pretty inspiring. And then find the couple of things that really stand out to you, that feel doable, that feel achievable, that you feel like you could take some action on. And I think the third thing would just to be a little easier on ourselves and to let go of some of the feeling of we need to be with our kids when we're working, and we need to be working when we're with our kids, and to just kind of let each time that we have be that. Be present when you need to work, be present for that. When you're with your kids, be present for that, instead of always worrying and having stress over what we could be doing at that particular moment. Be kind to yourself. You're doing a good job. Yeah,
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that you have a free gift to share as well.
I do. I created a Mompreneur survival kit, and I kind of joke that I call it a thriving kit instead, because it's really about how to create a foundation for thriving in your business and your life. And I always kind of put the life part in there, because the business part is so important, but as moms, we have to think a little bit outside of that. And so it's got 5 quick templates in there for you, everything from creating your business plan, which most of us avoid doing, by the way. So it's really quick and easy, 1-page business plan. It's got a couple of other things in there for growing your business, and work-life balance is in there as well, the elusive work-life balance. So yeah, if you'll visit theradiantmompreneur.com, you can sign up and download your free kit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really
appreciate
being here with us.
Thanks.
And as a reminder to everyone, the email that you were sent with this video also has a link that will direct you to access the free gift. So go check it out. And this concludes today's interview of Motherhood Unlimited. Thank you everyone again for joining us. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for another exciting, inspirational, and helpful interview from Motherhood Unlimited. I look forward to having you all with us. Thank you. Bye.